Hi traders, Mandy here from High Performance Trading. So last week I worked with a really interesting trader. He is actually a really successful trader, right? Trades full time and he's trading actually exceptionally well. But from time to time, it's this wave of anxiety is gripping him and it's causing him to mismanage his trades. He gets into so he sees a setup, he gets into the trade, he suddenly starts becoming unsure of him. That anxiety, when it grips him, his heart starts pounding, he gets short, he can't breathe properly anymore, he can't think rationally, logically anymore, and he just becomes this totally different person. So, he gets into the trade, gets unsure, gets out of the trade, but he sees price continues in his direction. Then he's like, oh man, I should get back in. So he gets back in, unsure again, gets out. And, this loop continues. We jokingly call it a fruit loop. And the worst thing is that the trade then usually goes to his profit target, leaving him behind in the dust, feeling really frustrated. And so in this trade that I'm going to show you in a minute, he once again identified his A+ setup, the kind that he typically trades like a world champion. But again, this wave of anxiety hit him and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So let me show you what that looked like. Okay, so now you see the chart. You can see beautiful setup. And he started to get into the trade, but then got freaked out, got in and out, and really you can see how many positions he loaded onto this, little move here. And the thing is, if he had stayed in the trade, he could have made it went all the way up to his profit target. He could have made close to 100 points, which is, a really, really good move. But because he went in and out, he had a lot of commissions that he had to pay. And also he left a lot of money on the table because, going in and out, there was a lot of slippage as well. So you can imagine how frustrated he was. And because he was so frustrated, he tried to make up for it in the Asia session where there is low liquidity. And that's where he started going on tilt. So this year wasn't a tilt that was like micromanaging. This year was on tilt because none of them was really his setup. And he said, I don't know what's going on with me. It's like someone else is controlling me. I always have this little joke where I say it's like this little alien from the movie Men in Black. In Men in Black, they open the guy's head and then there's this little alien sitting in the brain with all the, remotes making the human do whatever they want him to do. And that's kind of what it feels like in trading, right? So we do these things, we impulsively get into a trade or we get out of our position really quickly. And the finger moves faster than we can think. And it's like someone else is controlling us. So that's really an accurate description of what is going on. Now, you could obviously see how he offloaded his tension of the internal struggle, the anxiety onto the chart, right? The getting in and getting out is nothing but anxiety being translated onto the chart or being acted out onto the chart. The fruit loop. Now, the really weird thing is that even if he has like a $200 loss, which is nothing for him because, as I said, he's a very successful businessman as well. And he actually built several businesses. And the last business he sold for a 8-figure profit. Like, $200 is nothing for him. And yet this fear of anxiety, this wave of anxiety would grip him. So it clearly is not the money. Something else must have been going on for him. And it is usually, as always, trauma. Thank God I'm a trauma trained coach. So that's my favorite thing to do, to look at what is driving that anxiety driven behavior and then clear the trauma behind the behavior. It's just very, very rewarding as a coach. So what we did is we went to the first trade where he had the anxiety, where he went in and out, and we looked at what was the fear that he experienced. So I helped him to articulate the fear. And the fear that was driving that behavior was the feeling of helplessness, the fear of losing control, the fear that he will never reach his full potential. Yes, he is doing quite well. Particularly, he has not reached his full potential at all, right? So there's a lot more for him to come. And so that was, that was what was driving the anxiety, this lack of self-trust. And logically, he knows it's completely unfounded, that fear. And yet he was feeling those fears. So we had to look at them and work through them and heal them so that he could let them go. What most traders do is they try to fight the fear. They don't want to feel the emotions. They want, they come to me and say, can you help me get rid of the emotions because they cause me to self-sabotage? It's like, no, it's not the emotions that cause you to self-sabotage. It's the conditioning that you experienced at the time when that fear was first created. And Carl Jung has a beautiful word for it. He calls that repetition compulsion. So repetition compulsion, here's the definition, is a psychological tendency where traders unconsciously recreate past traumas and unresolved emotions in the chart in trading, even when it leads to negative outcomes. And so when my trader first heard of this definition, he is like, wow, this light bulb went off for him, and he finally start to understand a little bit better what is causing the self-destructive behavior. And that the self-destructive behavior in the markets was nothing but mirroring the deeper fears that he experienced as a child that were rooted in the past. So it was the echoes from the past. Now, when he grew up, he was a promising Olympic athlete. So they look for talent very early on and they start training the talent. So when they turn 18, they can go to the Olympics. And he was one of those, special athletes. But, how life happens, he had some tragedy happening in his family and he had to give up on his sports because his family couldn't support him anymore. And as a child, well, he was helpless because the adults made the decisions for him. No matter how much he protested, he had to give up on his Olympic career, on his dream of being a professional athlete. And yes, he didn't have any control because other people made the decisions for him. He was at their mercy. So he clearly wasn't in control, right? And also, he wasn't able to fulfill his dreams as an athlete. He wasn't able to live his life of the passion that he had. So, yes, once again, we can see how exactly what he was fearing for his trading was what he had experienced as a child in the past. And so that was the trauma that he felt no one was there to support him through that time because the family was busy with dealing with the unexpected hardship that they fell on. So can't we understand that sometimes when those fears that seem irrational in our trading, when they grip us, that there's actually a really good reason for it? When you start looking at those fears, at those emotions with compassion, you become curious about them. You look, okay, so what is going on here for me? And you start sorting those emotions, you start making sense of them. That's when you start healing them. That's when they lose the control over you. And when he really became present and really acknowledged and validated that, yes, as a child, he was helpless. He had to let his dreams and passions slide because of life circumstances, because other people made decisions for him, because he had no control over his life. And as a child, he also felt really alone because, the adults, they were busy with dealing with their own fears and grief, and no one really was there to help him through his stuff, right? But nowadays, this is not the truth anymore. He's got a beautiful family. The family fully supports him. He's financially secure. He is in full control. And even if something should happen, he knows how to deal with setbacks because he had so many setbacks in his life. And look, he still became successful. And so when you start healing those old experiences, that's when the emotions lose their power over you. When they come in, you can pause and say, oh, there's this old emotion again. Acknowledge it, validate it, let it go, and then you can focus on trading well again. So I hope this experience, this example of my trader is going to help you to also identify what is going on in your trading and helps you to become the best trader that you can be and fulfilling your trading dreams and goals. And as I always say, every successful trader has a dark past and every struggling trader has a bright future. Thank you so much for being here and lots of love to you guys.